Hello everybody, my name is Anthony, aka Tone14, and I am the coach of your main Red Clawsters, and today I'll be bringing you my team builder for week 6 of the NES, when I go up against Dudesy, coach of the AC Milanturns. If you missed my last battle, we were able to come back from a tough week 4, and came away with a nice solid 3-0 victory against CO Cadelic, coach of the Cleveland S Cavaliers, with a nice, well-rounded effort all around by my entire team, and I couldn't be happier. We are back on track for victory. We are 4-1 heading into this matchup, and my opponent is also 4-1, and he has a very devastating team at his disposal. Access to both sun and sand, which is extremely difficult to prepare for altogether. He has a Mega Charizard Y with the Excadrill, and outside of sand, he also has other threats like the Salamence, the Shaman, the Emboar. And he also has nice solid defensive Pokemon to rely on for my wall breakers with the Weezing, the Aromatisse, the S-Cavaliers, a nice bulky tank, and he has a nice good revenge killer with that Ditto, so I have to pick my opportunity to set up very carefully when I have to face this Ditto. Nevertheless, I believe I have built a team of 6 that can counteract, hopefully, everything that gets thrown my way. So without further ado, I won't go too much into my opponent's team as it is very devastating all around and a lot of threats to cover. But nevertheless, I think I have adequately built a successful team, and we'll see what happens as we get prepared for this battle. Now, moving on to the first Pokemon I have on my team, I have the Blissey, the Eggland's Best here, with Soft Boil, Toxic, Flamethrower, and Ice Beam. Now, Blissey is here as my direct response to his special attackers, his Shaman, his Mega Charizard Y. Have to be careful if that Shaman is a Sub-Seed set, and it can lower my Blissey's special defense with the Seed Flare, which is also going to be problematic. Toxic is here to wear down his walls, wears down the Hippowdon, wears down the Rotom if he doesn't have rest, wears down the Aromatisse, though he most likely, if he does bring the Aromatisse, it will have Aromatherapy. Flamethrower is here, so Excadrill doesn't get a free turn of setup on it, and also hits the S-Cavalier for some good damage, and Ice Beam is here for the same reason as Flamethrower, as it lets me deal a tremendous amount of damage to the Salamence. It also hits the Hippowdon and the Shaman. EV spread, still pretty standard. Max defense, max special defense, make it as bulky as possible, rest on a special attack, boost the power of those of Flamethrower and Ice Beam just a little bit, but mainly Blissey is here as my response to his Megazord Y. It also takes hits from the Rotom Wash fairly well. I just have to be a little bit more cautious when I play around other wall breakers and sweepers, so I gotta pick and choose my spots pretty carefully if he does bring that Mega Charizard Y. Moving on now to my second Pokemon here, we have Camilla, the Gourgeist Super, back for another week with Will-O-Wisp, Synthesis, Seed Bomb, and Rock Slide this time around. Now, I knew I needed to switch into Sand. Hippowdon was a threat. Excadrill was a huge pertinent threat, and I needed something that can switch into both fairly well. And I figured, why not go with Gourgeist? Gourgeist can tank hits from the Excadrill if he's not a Sword Stance set. I block Rapid Spin if he does decide to bring Rapid Spin. I could potentially burn the Excadrill Will-O-Wisp. I keep myself healthy with the Synthesis. Seed Bomb hits the Rotom Wash and the Hippowdon pretty well. Does a good amount of damage to the Excadrill, especially if he's Life Orb wearing itself down pretty deep, pretty much, and it does do some neutral damage. And Rock Slide is mainly here on the Gourgeist just to see if I can catch that Megazord Y on the switch, as Charizard does double resist Seed Bomb, so I had to be more cautious around that and make sure that my Gourgeist can at least do some damage to that Megazord Y if he decides to bring it. And I don't want to be completely walled or waste a turn of switching out to my Blissey. He can predict that and double switch out and stuff like that. We're going to go physically defensive spread to better take hits from the Hippowdon, take hits from the Excadrill, stuff like that. Things like the Salamence, so I can possibly burn. It's not like a substitute Dragon Dance set, which would be problematic. But I feel as though that I should be able to play around it if need be, but I'm not entirely sure. He could possibly be a special Salamence, which would also be problematic, so I have to be wary of that. I do have the Blissey, but I don't want my Blissey to be overwhelmed because there are a ton of things to worry about on his team, and I don't want to make my Blissey feel overwhelmed by this. So, in spite of that, moving on to the third Pokemon here, we have Crimson, the Druddigon, back for another week, bringing a more defensive EV spread this time around and I needed something that can switch in to both Excadrill somewhat and the Charizard Y if I needed to, but other than that, this Druddigon's here as my Stealth Rockers to slow things down with the Glare and face off the Dragon Tail. Earthquake is here along with Mold Breaker so I can hit the Weezing and the Rotom super effectively, as Mold Breaker lets me bypass Levitate, and since both they're weak to ground, so they do a pretty good amount, even though uninvested, and they're most likely going to be physically defensive, stuff like that. So, it might be a problem if my Druddigon does get burned, so I have to be very careful about that. As for my EV spread, I know it's a little bit convoluted, but I do have my reasons. First and foremost, I'm running 44 EVs with a Jolly Nature. This lets me outspeed an uninvested Weezing and hit it with an Earthquake before it could potentially burn me with Will-O-Wisp. So if Weezing is in a weakened state and I can switch in my Druddigon, I can Earthquake it before it can potentially burn me. And I figure he would be like a physically defensive set to better take on hits from like my Druddigon if I bring in an offensive, my Cobalion, my Scolipede, stuff like that. So hit it with an Earthquake before it can potentially burn me with Will-O-Wisp, stuff like that. 52 EVs special defense lets me avoid, if I did the calculations right, it lets my Druddigon take at least 2 Focus Blasts from a Mega Charizard Y from full HP. And then I can hit it with a Glare, I can Dragon Tail it, phase it out, make it take more rocks damage, stuff like that. And the defense, and the rest is just put into the HP and defense to make it take hits better. So basically my Druddigon's role is to get up rocks, slow things down with Glare, phase stuff out. That's pretty much its role for this team. It might be a little bit difficult if he has the Aromateas, but I do have Wall Breakers that can take advantage of Aromateas' passiveness at times, so we'll get to those Wall Breakers right now. And our first Wall Breaker is Splish Splash the Manaphy here, running Tailglow Rain Dance this time. Now, looking at his team, he has the Sun, he has the Sand. What the Sun and Sand both hate, they both hate rain. So, why not bring Rain Dance Manaphy? If I get up a Tailglow against, say, the Aromateas, who does bring it, something along those lines, I can set up a Tailglow, I can get up a Rain Dance to mess with the Excadrill Sand Rush, and then my Manaphy outspeeds without the Sand. And then if I win the speed tie against the Mega Charizard Y, as he's going for a Solar Beam, I can Rain Dance and will force him to take an extra turn to fire that Solar Beam, as he can't switch out. And I did the calculations, and max special attack Manaphy's Scald in the Rain has a chance to one-hit KO a Mega Charizard Y from full, which is very nice to see. Window Barrier will take a super effective grass attack from either the Megazord Y's Solar Beam, and take a hit from Shaman's Seed Flare, stuff like that. This set is walled by the Rotom Wash, unfortunately, as I couldn't fit the extra coverage I need, as I needed Ice Beam to let me deal with Salamence, especially if he's Lumberry Salamence. It lets me deal with that a little bit better. And I should do some pretty good damage to Rotom, as I'm pretty sure that a Thunderbolt won't take out my Manaphy, especially if he's physically defensive. So it'll most likely be a 2-hit KO, but I should be able to do enough damage for my other Pokemon to come in and clean up. Running max special attack, max speed lets me speed tie with the Shaman. I outspeeds things like a unboosted Salamence, extra drill outside of rain, things like that. Also lets me speed tie with the Zara Y, hopefully get up a Rain Dance before he gets a chance to fire off a Solar Beam. As surprisingly, his Charizard is his fastest Pokemon that's not Choice Scarf. I do have to be more careful with this Manaphy set, as I can't really set up freely until I get rid of that Ditto, which is going to be a problem. So the main thing I have to do is I have to just Rain Dance first, and once the Ditto's out of place, I can Tail Glow and hopefully get some things going for me in terms of a sweep. Another thing I could run potentially over Rindell Berry is Salad Berry and probably a substitute set, but I'm already strapped for move slots as it is with my Manaphy, so I don't want to stretch out my Manaphy's role any more than I have to, which would just be a problem for me. And I don't want any more problems than I already have right now. So moving on to our fifth Pokemon here, making her return after a 2-week absence. We have Lily the Mega Gardevoir here, rocking Substitute, Psychic, Hyper Voice, and Focus Blast. Now you're probably thinking, okay, I have no reason whatsoever to bring Mega Gardevoir here. He has the Excadrill, he has Escavalier, which will most likely be a Solfest. What in the world what compels you to bring Mega Gardevoir in this situation? Well, to be perfectly honest, I don't really have anything better to bring. I could bring Hitmontop to take on the Excadrill, take on the Escavalier. It's a possibility. We'll see what happens beforehand. I might look over the team a little bit more before I go into this. But the idea behind Gardevoir is it does give me a way to deal with Wheezing. It lets me wear down the Salamence, the Hippowdon, stuff like that. I can force. Mega Gardevoir isn't fast, but I can still force switches. I can set up a substitute against things like the Rotom. I can set up on Aromatisse if he does bring it. I have to play around the Escavalier and stuff like that. But basically, I get off the sub, I get at least the free turn to fire off a good solid hit and do some damage to anything on his team. I'm running Focus Blast here over Hidden Power Fire, as I don't want to lose a speed tie to Mega Charizard Y. I could also potentially bring Hidden Power Rock, as I don't believe that messes with your speed IVs, but I would be even more walled by the Excadrill and the Escavalier as I am, and I really am banking on a 70% accurate move to hit Excadrill and to do some damage to that Escavalier. I do have switches to Escavalier in my Gourgeist and my Druddigon, but I'll see. My main thing here is to just make sure I can get up a sub and then start trying to break things down with Psychic Focus Blast. Psychic hits the Wheezing, hits the Emboar. Hyper Voice for General Stab hits the Salamence. I have to be careful around the Ditto, as Hyper Voice does bypass Substitutes, but at the same time, Substitute is here, so I can prevent Ditto from trying to imposter me, as it can't imposter a Substitute. And Focus Blast is for the Excadrill, that lets me do damage to that Escavalier, things like that. Running a standard max special attack, max speed set lets me speed tie with all base 100s, like the Shaman and the Mega Charizard Y. Lets me outspeed Salamence after Mega Evolution. So I'm just trying to wear stuff down with my Mega Gardevoir. It is basically the general idea behind my set. And moving on to the final Pokemon I have on my team, I do have Centikill the Solipede, rocking a sub-Sword Stance set this go around. This is supposed to be like a late game sweeper, so to speak, and I'm also running Substitute for the same reason I'm running Substitute on my Gardevoir, Scolipede can force switches, and I can get off a sub. I can block status with block Will-O-Wisp from the Weezing, Will-O-Wisp from the Rotom, get off the Sword Stance, and then potentially wear stuff down with Poison Jab and Aqua Tail, which does have some good solid coverage overall, as nothing on this team resists both poison and water. Like, after a Sword Stance, I can pretty much do significant damage to things like the Rotom. Aqua Tail, I believe, after a Sword Dance, is a 2-hit KO on the Weezing. Aqua Tail also lets me hit the Excadrill, I hit the Hippowdon, hit the Emboar. Poison Jab is for the Shaman, the Aromatisse. It's my best way to hit the Charizard Wild without having to bring Rock Slide. And Aqua Tail makes it for the loss of coverage with Rock Slide, as Rock Slide is only when hit the Mega Charizard Y, so I figured Aqua Tail would give me more coverage against things I need to hit. This is a more bulky speed boost-esque Scolipede here, as the main thing I wanted to do was to make sure I outsped base 100s after a speed boost. I didn't want to sacrifice bulk for speed in this scenario, and I wanted my subs to be as bulky as possible. As if he does bring the Aromatisse, for example, I could set up on that. I could set up on Hippowdon potentially if he's not like a Whirlwind set. If he does have Whirlwind or Roar. So I'm pretty sure a Hippowdon can break, even uninvested, can break my Scolipede substitutes. As it's my Scolipede's job here is basically trying to get a late game sweep. Get in, set up a substitute on something I can force out, Sword Stance, and then just go to town with Poison Jab and Aqua Tail for coverage. Max attack, hit as hard as possible, 188 HP, gives it that bulk, it's a life orb number, 36 defense, 28 special defense, gives it some speed, and the 4 is just in speed, just because there's nowhere else to put it, as basically I'm outspeeding base. My Scolipede will outspeed base 100s after a speed boost, and if I get off a substitute, I can set up on the Ditto, which can't imposter, like I said, it cannot imposter a substitute. So my strategy is a little bit limited somewhat. I kind of struggle a little bit with the Rotom Wash. And then my only super active coverage is on the Gourgeist, which does not want to get burned. I could have brought Heal Bell on my Blissey, but I felt that Flamethrower Toxic and Ice Beam was more beneficial to my team as it is. As for what I predict my opponent to bring, I'm definitely expecting the Excadrill and the Hippowdon to come. I'm predicting the Salamence, I'm predicting the Ditto, I'm predicting the Escavalier, and I am predicting either the Weezing, Rotom, or possibly the Shaman. I could see Emboar coming somewhat, but Emboar does get warned, is outpaced by my Manaphy, outpaced by Mega Gardevoir, so he has to bring Choice Scarf Emboar. But I don't think if he brings Choice Scarf Ditto, he brings Choice Scarf Emboar. But I've been surprised in the past before. As last week my opponent did bring dual Scarfs against me, so anything is possible. So we'll see what happens as the match comes about. I'll be bringing you post-commentary of the match whenever it happens. So, and we keep on looking to see if we can become 5-1 as we head to the midway point of the season. So, until next time, my name is Anthony, aka Tone14, and I'm going to catch you guys on the flip side. Later!